Hey, folks, it is April 18th. That means that 420 is nearly upon us. And that means it's a perfect time to go outside and start to plant. Growing season is underway, and that's why Cedar Seeds is having an all-week 420 sale. Go to cedarseeds.com. Use the code 420 at checkout. Get a free packet of TG2. That's train wreck. Buy anything in the store. Use code 420, and you will get a free packet of the proprietary train wreck hybrid for each order of anything else. Now you got to add the train wreck manually. So head to cedarseeds.com. Remember, this is when I tried my hand at growing some cannabis. Backyard growing, it is legal in New York. 6 plants. And I didn't sex the plants, and so I got all seeds. But now you can buy those. You got to, all units of seeds are sold in packets of 6. We've got a grow guide there. You just check that out. That'll help you out if you want to play around with it. You put the train wreck into your cart manually. You'll get that free. It's free shipping, and the deal ends April 23rd at 11:59 p.m. Train Boy wants me to change the name of train wreck, but I'm sorry. Check it out, cedarseeds.com. Now for the show.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
And I get the feeling you've been cheated.
It is Tuesday, April 18th, 2023. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, the Fox Dominion trial moving forward amidst Fox attempts to strike a deal. Also, that producer who had been told not to provide proper information in depositions, she apparently also had other information that Fox did not include in discovery. Meanwhile, the clock is ticking on Alito's stay of Mifepristone decision. Plaintiffs were supposed to, or I should say, parties were supposed to file by noon, find out if they did that. Republicans reject a Feinstein committee swap, which of course they were going to. Kevin McCarthy shows his debt ceiling hand, and it's empty. Writers Guild of America, that's the film and television writers, vote to overwhelmingly to authorize a strike. New report, White House ignored child labor abuse of migrant children that led to that recent Department of Labor, ultimately, investigation. Meanwhile, 84-year-old man charged in the shooting of that black teenager in Kansas City. And meanwhile, in upstate New York, a man is charged in the killing of a woman who was in a car that drove down the wrong driveway. Minnesota advances automatic voter registration. And Ali Alexander, the Stop the Steal organizer, accused of soliciting sexual organ pictures from teens. Male sexual organs pictures. Sudan ceasefire fails to materialize as the country is on the brink of a full-on civil war. LA Mayor Karen Bass calls her a massive anti-homelessness project in LA. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining us. Emma on a well-deserved personal day. It's her birthday, actually. Happy birthday, Emma. She's not even out of her 20s yet. Neither are you. Jesus. Ridiculous. Yeah, I know. Oh, I know. Absolutely ridiculous. Thanks for joining us. We got a lot to get to today. Matt, of course, is still on grand jury duty. So it's just Bradley and I in the office today. Starting off, let's just go to the, we predicted this yesterday, and it was probably happening while we were on the air. But the Republicans basically came out and said, we're not going to in any way facilitate a swapping of Dianne Feinstein from the Judiciary Committee to some other committee. As you know, she has supposedly been out now for weeks, having been hospitalized with shingles. Very possibly the case that she was hospitalized with shingles. Very possibly. But it's also not the full story to say that's why she will not be returning in any type of timely fashion. She may not return, for all we know. It is well reported that she has significant dementia. The Judiciary Committee, at any time, is obviously one of the key committees in our government. It is impossible to overstate the relevance of the Judiciary Committee to really anyone who cares about the growing Republican fascism, authoritarianism, theocracy, white Christian nationalism, whatever you want to call it. The Judiciary Committee is the one place where there is actually something effective can happen that is long-term and lasting. Lifetime appointments to the federal judiciary, and it's being held up on the committee now. They cannot confirm anyone in the committee. There's a couple of nominees that have gotten out of committee. They'll be voted on the Senate floor. But then it all dries up. And the reason why it dries up is because of the failure of Chuck Schumer, the failure of the California Democratic Party, the failure of Dianne Feinstein's staffers, the failure of Dianne Feinstein's family, the failure of maybe donors who have supported Dianne Feinstein in the past, the failure of Democratic establishment who is afraid of having a more progressive acting senator, essentially, appointed in California. All of these people share in the blame and the responsibility for this abject failure to be able to do the one thing that the Democrats can effectively do right now in Washington is to get more judges on the federal judiciary. That is the one thing that they are there for, essentially, now. And they have failed. This has been coming down the pike for at least in terms of the public. When was the first reporting? Do we remember when that first story came out? If we have access to this information, if it is enough of a problem that it's being reported, and I think it was in the Washington Post, that Dianne Feinstein doesn't even know where she is, then they have known this for longer than that. It is really unbelievable.
It looks like, the San Francisco Chronicle had reported on it in April of last year.
Okay, so it's been 12 months since it was a big enough of a story that it was reported in the news. That means that every person working on the beat dealing with Dianne Feinstein's office, weighing against their burning all of their contacts in her office, right? I mean, because that's the way it works. If you write this, I'm no longer going to be a source of information for you and help you with your job as a reporter. So they've known about this in the Senate for a year, and now here we are. So she needs to resign. All those people who have failed, everyone who voted for Democrats in Senate races in Pennsylvania or Georgia or wherever it is, you have failed all those people. And it is your job now to get Dianne Feinstein or whoever is in charge of answering her phone or whoever it is that's in charge of her daily functions, to get her to resign now. Because this is just untenable. You're going to waste the final year and a half of appointing judges because you're all afraid that if you get to be 90 years old and have dementia, or 89 years old and have dementia, or I don't care, if you get dementia at age 60. This is not, someone hosting a YouTube show. This is someone whose presence or absence, I should say, is doing daily harm to the country. Every day in which that committee cannot do its work, we are losing 1, 2, 3, 5, 10, 15, 20, and God forbid there's an opening on the Supreme Court. And the Judiciary Committee is 50-50.
And also, with the Republicans sort of stonewalling this, really the actual easier path to rectifying this situation would be for her to resign and for Gavin Newsom to appoint a successor.
Without a doubt.
For it to just go through regular
Without
order
a doubt.
of a freshman senator.
That person could be sitting on that committee in 2 weeks
Right.
if she resigned today. Or a new person would be sitting, obviously, on a committee. Not necessarily the person who's appointed from California, but and listen to this, though. I mean, listen how much the Republicans are enjoying this. I mean, of course, you hear Cornyn, these are controversial nominees. We're not going to get involved in that. And understand, Feinstein herself, Feinstein's staff issued a statement asking that she be swapped out with another Democrat so the panel can advance judges until she's able to return. I mean, this is just absurd. Tom Tillis, I will vote against any attempt by Senate Democrats to temporarily replace Feinstein on the Judiciary Committee. Mitt Romney also rejected the proposal. This is just delicious, though. And, I mean, the idea that Susan Collins is still in the Senate is just absurd. It's also a failure of Chuck Schumer's choices in terms of who should be running in these Senate races. Susan Collins, Republican of Maine, said she too is against the swap. We put this quote up there because it's so astonishing. She's been an extraordinary senator. She's a friend of mine. During the past 2 years, there's been a concerted campaign to force her off the Judiciary Committee, and I think that's wrong, and I won't be a part of that. The request came from Feinstein herself. I mean, when I say Feinstein herself, I'm talking about the people who work around her, who are letting her know where she is and what she should be signing. Does anybody remember when she supposedly said, I'm not running for re-election? And she was immediately asked, wow, that's amazing. You're not running for re-election? I never said that. Oh, yes, you did. What? Oh, I guess I did. Well, okay. Meanwhile, Dick Durbin, she's obviously sensitive to the fact that her absence has an impact on the committee. Again, when the word she is in there, replace that with the staffers who are running her office or doing, or whoever it is in charge of these things. And he says, I'm not going to push her into any other decision. I think we can take care of the issue, do it very quickly, and I hope we can find 10 Republicans who will join us in that effort. Well, Dick Durbin's wrong. He was wrong. He was wrong. The ink wasn't even dry by the time he was proven wrong. I mean, God help us if this is anything other than just him being polite in public, and they're working on. They've drafted a resignation letter, and somebody's hand flying it to San Francisco, because this is just it's outrageous. And honestly, any single commentator or pundit or writer who claims that there's some other agenda associated with this, that it's misogynist, or that it's progressives trying to force Gavin Newsom's hand, is a liar. They are lying. They know what it's at stake here. It is putting more judges on the federal judiciary. Period. End of story. I don't care who it is sitting on that committee. Honestly. I mean, I'm trying to come up with somebody who I care about that could be on the committee, that if they were sitting on the committee, I'd be upset about it. Bernie Sanders, I don't care. If they can't show up, get them off. Got a couple of sponsors today. I'm sorry. This is it's got me angry. I shouldn't have spent so much time on that, but I was pissed about it. Someone just wrote, Feinstein's office phones don't either pick up or go straight to voicemail with no outgoing message. Nobody's there. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised by that at all.
Constituent services for the largest state in the country.
Well, what are you going to do?
We won't pick up. That's fine. Call someone else.
Hey, I mentioned cedarseeds.com. Not only do we use Shopify at Majority Report, shop.majorityreportradio.com, where, incidentally, you can get those effing dork shirts. Those are selling like hotcakes. Check those out. But cedarseeds.com also. We need to get that thing up and running quick. The answer was obvious. It was Shopify. It makes it completely easy to sell online, and it also makes it super easy to sell offline, and lets you essentially coordinate the offline and online sales. Shopify also covers every sales channel. Like I say, you could do an in-person thing, like if we're ever doing a live show, or I don't know, if we go to a farmer's market and sell those seeds. Or you can sell across like social media platforms and marketplaces like TikTok and Facebook and Instagram. And I'm sure Twitter will set that up soon. I don't know anybody's going to be there anymore. But it has all sorts of tools that will help your growth. Shopify gives you complete control of your business and your brand. You don't have to learn any new skills or design or code or any of that. They have 24/7 help. They have an extensive business course library. They're just there basically to promote your success. This is Possibility. It is powered by Shopify. You can sign up for $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/majority, all lowercase. Shopify.com/majority, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/majority. Take your business to the next level today. Shopify.com/majority. We'll, of course, put that link in the podcast and YouTube descriptions. Meanwhile, also, if you've got to ship something out, you got a business, and you need to ship something out, which is, again, cedar seeds. And for me, back when I was, when we first started taking memberships, I was sending out DVDs. That's how long ago it was. Not 8-track tapes, though. But the bottom line is stamps.com. They've been doing this for 25 years now, and they've been helping businesses like yours, like mine, save time and money. Beauty is you can focus on your business itself and not the shipping part, because stamps.com has all your postage needs covered with discounts and great rates. All you need with stamps.com is a computer and a printer. They'll even send you a free scale, and you'll have everything you need to just start shipping stuff out. If you need package pickup, easily schedule it through your stamps.com dashboard. And if you sell products online, stamps.com seamlessly connects with every major marketplace and shopping cart. Super easy. You want to do this at 3 a.m? You want to get your postage ready at 3 a.m? You could do it. You get all sorts of discounts. You can set up your business for success when you get started with stamps.com today. Sign up with the promo code Majority Report. You'll get a special offer that includes a 4-week trial, plus free postage, and a free digital scale. No long-term commitments or contracts. Just go to stamps.com, click the microphone at the top of the page, enter the code Majority Report. Again, we'll put that link, the podcast and YouTube descriptions. Check it out. I mentioned briefly that the Mifepristone decision. This is the decision by ultimately by the Fifth Circuit, saying that they're going to overrule the FDA's finding that Mifepristone is safe by the FDA. This has been used in the country for a decade more.
It's been in use basically in the U.S. since 2000.
Okay, so two decades,
right,
20 years. It is used in conjunction with Mifepristone. That is still available. There's two things going on here. One is we have a right-wing theocracy, really, in the Fifth Circuit. The federal judiciary, again, crucial. We got a judge in Texas, a couple of them, who circuit court judges who right-wingers will shop their cases to. They get the ruling they want. They take it up to the Fifth Circuit. That is a nest of right-wingers. And they push these decisions. Another court reversed that, so it goes to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court puts a stay on it by Alito. Supposedly by today, they're supposed to hear from the parties. And the stay ends, if I'm not mistaken, tomorrow night.
Yeah, like midnight.
Okay, yeah. So they've got about 36 hours to deal with this. The interesting thing here, too, is that Alito's own decision back in 2009, here it is. Do you have this?
I can get it.
Okay, we'll put this up. But Sam Alito, from a 2009 opinion, where FDA determines, in accordance with its statutory mandate, that a drug is on balance safe, our conflict preemption cases prohibit any state from countermanding that determination. Now, this is arguably a precedent, but if a state doesn't have this power, there's no reason to believe that the federal judiciary does. Like, this is the principle, right? That unless the FDA has found a drug safe that is contrary to its statutory mandate, where does the court, any court, have the opportunity to come in and say, and really without any there's no evidence that it's dangerous. That the FDA got this wrong. We'll find out from the Supreme Court. I mean, they're generally not bound by this stuff. But again, we've talked about the Chevron doctrine, other doctrines that essentially say the court defers to the expertise of these agencies. And this is something that the court has been basically chipping away at with their major questions doctrine, which is a made up doctrine, whole cloth, essentially arguing that if we think it's a big deal, we get to decide. There's no other principle. If it's a big deal, the court gets to decide. Regardless as to whether it has been done a different way, regardless of whatever precedent we've had in the past as deference to government agencies, the major questions doctrine, they weren't even that clever with the naming of the doctrine. If it's a big deal, incidentally, there is no standards for what constitutes a major question under this doctrine. It's just that if we decide it's a big deal, then we get to overrule every other body of government, the executive, the legislative, arguably the Constitution, certainly as defined by how the court has defined the Constitution in the past. So stay tuned for that. We will know within the next 24 hours, or I should say 36 hours, as to what how the court's going to rule on that. Because if they rule that a court can decide the FDA didn't know what they're doing when they found a drug to be safe, I'm not sure how much the implications will be for access to that drug, because people can get it from foreign countries. There's going to be networks set up to get that drug. Mifepristone works in the same way. It's more effective and safer with Mifepristone, in conjunction. But you're going to see, you talk about hindering the development and release of drugs. If the court can say the FDA does not have the capacity to determine whether a drug is safe or not, drug companies, what are they going to do? How do we know that we're putting out a safe drug? How do we know that when we put out the safe drug that it's still going to be allowed to be sold after that?
Yeah, like, will FDA approved, I guess, even that label, like, will that, like, mean anything? Because I feel like, isn't that implying the regulatory approval of the drug, sort of?
No, that is exactly what it is.
Right. I guess it'll make...
No, it will mean something, but it will be able to be rescinded at any time by any court anywhere in the country.
You could do it for, like, Motrin or something, for example, or, like, Bayer.
Golden Oyster Cult. If the Supreme Court effectively outlaws abortion by affirming the Fifth Circuit ruling, transgender healthcare is next. Well, I disagree that the Supreme Court would be effectively outlawing abortion by affirming the Fifth Circuit ruling. I think that's a misinterpretation. However, coincidentally, I do agree that we're going to start seeing cases as to both the ability of states to ban transgender care. And I think we're going to see cases to that effect. And I think the Supreme Court, they're just going to go with it. In fact, the lawyer, or I should say the judge who delivered the initial case, Matthew Kaczmarek, when he was a lawyer for a conservative legal group, which of course he was, in 2017, he submitted an article to a Texas law review criticizing the Obama-era protections for transgender people and those seeking abortions. Of course, this stuff goes hand in hand. Hand in hand. Let's talk about, there was a report. We don't know anything about the Fox Dominion thing, so let's just go right into this piece that came out, I think, while I was on vacation in the New York Times about the ongoing campaign against transgender rights. I mean, this is something I've been saying for a while. This came out April 16th, so I guess it was just over the weekend. It's important. There are two things that struck me about this piece in the New York Times. One, it completely ignored its role in what we're seeing in terms of transgender rights.
Oh, this is the one where it was like how it came to be a wedge issue, sort of.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
How a campaign against transgender rights mobilized conservatives. Right. I put two graphs in.
I got them.
Okay. This is by Adam Nagorny, my old buddy. And Jeremy Peters, I guess. When the Supreme Court declared a constitutional right to same-sex marriage nearly 8 years ago, social conservatives were set adrift. We knew we needed to find an issue that the candidates were comfortable talking about, said Terry Schilling, president of the American Principles Project, and we threw everything at the wall. What stuck? Transgender identity. For social conservatives, and it is stuck at a pace, I'm reading now from the piece, that has stunned political leaders across the spectrum. It has reinvigorated a network of conservative groups, increased fundraising, and set the agenda in school boards and state legislatures. What's missing from this piece is that how much of a failure it's been electorally. Not mentioned whatsoever. Again, there's two things that are going on here. One, it's breaking down how this issue grew. And two, it is completely denying, well, really two things. One, the role of the New York Times and the so-called popularists who pretend that somehow this motivates anybody but the rock solid base of the Republican Party. Now, with that said, the reddest of states in the country, at least 20 of them, controlled by Republicans, have enacted laws that impact transgender care and rights. Times reports 1.3 million adults, 300,000 children in the United States identify as transgender. These efforts have thrust them at a moment of increased visibility and vulnerability into the center of the nation's latest battle over cultural issues. It's not just the issues, the efforts of the conservatives. I mean, the New York Times has promoted this. It was also the result of careful planning by national conservative organizations to harness the emotion around gender politics, with gender norms shifting in a sharp rise in the number of young people identifying as transgender. Conservative groups spotted an opening in a debate that was gaining attention. It's a sense of urgency, said Matt Sharp, senior counsel with the Alliance Defending Freedom. The issue, he argued, is what can we do to protect the children? Mr. Schilling had said the issue had driven in thousands of new donors to the American Principles Project, most of them making small contributions. So it's a big fundraising thing. It's huge in that way. The opening salvo was trans sports bans. It was the test balloon in terms of how they can frame these things. Once they opened up parents' rights frame, they began to use it everywhere, said Nadine Smith, the director of Equality Florida. Here's what's interesting, and the Times doesn't, again, the way that they're covering this, they really want to make it seem like there's some type of broad support for this agenda. And the fact is, it is not. To the extent that it's broad, it is about an inch deep because people do not largely care about this. People are largely not threatened by this. That's just a fact. But the way that the Times tries to sell the idea that this has broader support and is different from any of the past sort of like queasiness that the right had about, women using their last names or going by Ms. or even using their first names so that they're not called Mrs. Samuel Cedar. Or the idea that gay people can exist or be teachers or can have rights or can get married. This is all the same trajectory. In the meantime, you're going to put hundreds of thousands of kids through hell. You're going to jeopardize the lives and the health and safety of at least 1.5 million people. And you're going to do it for profit and for electoral gain. They write, in a poll conducted in 2022, the Public Policy Research Institute, a nonpartisan research group, found that 68% of respondents favored allowing same-sex couples to marry, including 49% of Republicans. Now, if you present that figure, that could be an example of how easily, with proper leadership, people's opinions can change on things. Or you can use it as a way of saying somehow the transgender issue is different than the marriage equality issue, which is what they do. By contrast, a poll by the Pew Research found that 58% of Americans supported requiring that transgender athletes compete on teams that match the sex they were assigned at birth. 85% of Republicans held that view. Put up the graph of where we were just 15 years ago on marriage equality. Yeah. The percentage of adults who favor oppose same-sex marriage, 2001 to 2019. In 2002, the number of people who favored same-sex marriage was 38%. The number of people opposed was exactly 58%, or maybe 57. In fact, it went up as George Bush tried to demonize gay people in the run-up to the 2004 election and as a way of motivating Christian theocrats to come out and vote for him. It worked. It popped up to 60% were opposed. By 2011, maybe 2010, it was even. 50-50. And you could just see that trajectory over the course of almost 15 years. Maybe, 15, 16 years. And I got news for you. 58% of Americans supported requiring transgender athletes to compete on teams that match the sex they were assigned at birth. 58% of Americans don't give a goddamn crap about sports enough to think about that. This is even in their description of how this was ginned up, they are ginning it up. They write, Anita Bryant championed Saved Our Children campaign in 1977 to repeal a local ordinance in Dade, Miami County. What do you think the Save Our Children movement campaign in 1977 was to strike back against? This ordinance in Dade, Miami County. That ordinance prohibited, it did not allow discrimination based on being gay. But Anita Bryant started a campaign called Save Our Children to get Miami-Dade, or Dade, Miami County, to repeal a law that said you can't discriminate against gay people for being gay. In 2019, Schilling's organization found that, through research, found that voters were significantly more likely to support a Republican candidate who favored a ban on transgender girls participating in school sports, particularly when framed as a question of whether to allow men and boys to compete against women and girls, than a candidate pushing for a ban on transgender people using a bathroom of their choosing. Now, it also, what is unclear from this is that the research shows that you would support a Republican candidate more. Republican voters were. This doesn't appeal to people across the spectrum. Idaho becomes the first state to bar transgender girls from participating in girls and women's sports. And then it goes on and on. These are the same people who were, worried about the Baker stuff in Colorado. And just to give you an example of where the Republican politics are on this. March 2021, Kristi Noem declines to sign a bill passed by her state's Republican-controlled legislature that would have banned transgender girls from sports teams from kindergarten through college. Conservative groups attacked her. Tucker Carlson attacked her. Frank Cannon, American Principles Project. There's a real political effort now that will extract a punishment for you if you betray social conservatives. 11 months later, Kristi Noem signs a similar version of the same bill. Just give you a sense of how these things develop and how the New York Times, in reporting their own thing, leaves out the cover that the New York Times, that all of these sort of centrist, so-called popularist,
like the Atlantic too, with Jesse Siegel's coverage.
Yes, but also people like Chait,
Jonathan Chait,
Chait, and others. That's what's going on here. And the fact is that the people who care about banning transgender people, the people who care about attacking transgender people, the people who care about discriminating against them, feeling threatened by, what would the gender fluidity, or people who have all this care suddenly for the plight of women and how it's going to be problematic for them, so that there needs to be state action. They are far more invested in this than your average person whatsoever in the United States of America. And the majority of people in America are your average person. Now, that has two implications. One is it means that it's going to be very problematic for them electorally, even though they can do all sorts of harm, horrible harm to people, particularly in red states, but broadly in society. And the other thing is, it means that those of us who do care, at least enough to engage and protect the most vulnerable politically, socially in this era, have to be very vigilant about this stuff. More vigilant than I would be in general, frankly. Or that any of us, we shouldn't have to be. I don't talk about marriage equality anymore because it's just, it exists and there's no grave attack on it yet.
And this is sorry to interrupt you, Sam. This is also like a dignified way almost for the Times to sort of just basically be like, same-sex marriage stopped working for the Republicans to launder this culture war issue, and they found a new one. So here's how that happened. It's basically them saying, how did the Republicans manufacture?
No, it's also it's worse than that. It is not just they are covering their own ass on some level.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But they're also, This reads as if it is an immutable force that is growing, and that the Republican Party is held hostage by the social conservatives. It is letting them off the hook. It is completely denying the role of centrist pundits and thinkers and in sort of laundering this stuff. It's making it seem like it is an essential part of the American fabric. Like where the polling it on, just broadly speaking? Do you think transgender people should be eliminated? Do you think people shouldn't have a right? Do you think parents shouldn't have the right to sit down with a doctor and, under the best understanding that the medical profession has now, determine the best course of action for their children? I'm not saying that the medical protocols are right or wrong. I'm not a doctor. And if medicine has to evolve and figure out, this is a drug we can give kids at this age, this is a drug we can give kids at that age, or this is the type of treatment we provide at this age, or that type of treatment we provide at another age. That's what medicine does. But, and frankly, if one sport says having transgender athletes, not an issue in terms of safety or competition or whatever it is, and there are other sports that make different determinations, that's on them. But the political aspect of this and the culture war that is being waged, everybody must engage in, or everybody who cares has to engage in. And these people are trying to launder their role in it. That's what's going on here. They're trying to launder their role in this. It's gross. And that's probably why Nagorny got that assignment. That was always his job. How do we make it seem like the New York Times is not a player in any of this?
Well, because do you remember?
How do we make it seem like the number one newspaper in the country, arguably the world, has no implications? What hits our opinion pages, no implications to what's going on culturally or politically. That's what he gets deployed to do. He did that in 2004 too. I remember it quite clearly. Honestly. It's unbelievable. Let's just talk about this brief story about in February, I think it was, right? The Department of Labor started to investigate the huge increase in child labor violations that are happening across the country. New York Times reports that there was ample evidence in the White House that this was ongoing, and it was ignored. In fact, in some ways, it was scoffed at. Tells the story of a woman named Linda Brandmiller. She was working at a emergency shelter for migrant children in San Antonio. Her job was to vet sponsors. The White House was feeling a lot of political pressure because of all the unaccompanied children that were in essentially cages. And they basically said, get these children out the door. Brandmiller realized that one of the children was set to be released to a man in Florida who had had multiple children released to him. She asked for the supervisor's immediate attention, and adding that the government had already sent a 14-year-old boy to the same sponsor. Brandmiller also emailed the shelter's manager a few days later. Her building access was revoked during lunch break. She was never told why, and she'd been fired. There have been 250,000 migrant children who've come to the United States alone Thousands have ended up in punishing jobs across the country, according to the Times, working overnight in slaughterhouses, replacing roofs, operating machinery in factories, all in violation of child labor laws. That was in that Times public report from February that got the Labor Department to crack down on companies that hire children. Times reports again and again, veteran government staffers and outside contractors told the Health and Human Services Department, including in reports that reached Secretary Xavier Becerra's desk, that children appeared to be at risk. The Labor Department put out news releases noting an increase in child labor. Senior White House aides were shown evidence of exploitation, such as clusters of migrant children who had been found working with industrial equipment or caustic chemicals. As the administration scrambled to clear shelters that were strained beyond capacity, children were released with little support, sponsors who expected them to take on grueling, dangerous jobs. HHS officials said the department vetted sponsors sufficiently but could not control what happened to the children after they were released. Monitoring workplaces was the job of the Department of Labor. Department of Labor said inspectors had increased their focus on child labor and shared details about workers with HHS, but said it was not a welfare agency. So all they could do was not protect the children. They could just fine the employers. HHS says, well, we couldn't protect the children because we're out. We can't go into the employer's place. Brad Miller said, if I saw it, they could have put it together. They could have connected those dots. No one ever did. They found that boy that she was worried about. He is living in Florida City, Florida, separated from his family in Guatemala. In an interview last summer, he sat on a mildewed porch of a house crowded with other children. He said he was working long shifts in a refrigerated warehouse packing vegetables for distribution around the country. Had not seen his sponsor in months. 14-year-old boy. In 2021, as images of children sleeping under foil blankets in overflow centers dominated the news, Susan E. Rice, the White House's head of domestic policy, told staff members she was frustrated with the situation. This is according to 5 people who worked with her. Ms. Rice vented in a note she scribbled on a memo detailing the position of advocates who believed a pandemic-era border closure was compelling parents to send unaccompanied children, sometimes called UCs. So you understand, Title 42 is in place. You cannot get across the border. You've got COVID decimating countries in Central America. They certainly aren't equipped to deal with it in the way that we supposedly were. You've also got countries like Honduras, which are, most dangerous country in the world you could practically live in at that time. Parents are sending their kids across the border because they will not be sent home. Rice writes, "This is BS." In the margin of the memo, what is leading to voluntary separation is our generosity to unaccompanied children. Now, on one hand, if America was a more dangerous place, if America just threw all these unaccompanied migrant children into jails and left them there to rot, didn't feed them, showed images around the Central and Latin America of children starving in cages, it is quite possible that we would see a significant less frequency of parents sending their kids across the border. But the idea that we're being too generous to children is grotesque. It's grotesque. Under the law, the Department of Health and Human Services is responsible for vetting sponsors to ensure that they will provide for children's well-being and protect them from trafficking or exploitation. But as shelters filled with children, the department began loosening some vetting restrictions and urging case managers to speed the process along. Longtime HHS staff members complained that the changes endangered children. It was maddening, says Vivian Grabert, a White House advisor who worked with Ms. Rice on migrant issues. Administration officials grew exasperated, believing these workers were clinging to protocols that kept children in shelters when it was better for them to be in home with an adult. So you see what was going on here. Now, the reason why they wanted the idea that they were concerned about the children being in a home with an adult is BS. They were concerned because Fox News was putting images on, and there was pressure about the numbers of kids, and they wanted it off the front pages. That's what's going on here. And they would not dedicate the resources that were necessary. I mean, the rest of this is pretty depressing. But it's also, the administration obviously deserves a lot of responsibility for this. But it's also because we're just, as a country, we just continue not to care enough about protecting immigrants. That's just the bottom line. Don't have the same level of fervor that we had during the Trump administration. There isn't the same level of advocacy. And also we have a media that also refuses to address these issues in any meaningful way. I mean, the Times has done a great job with these pieces. But if you look at the way that the Arkansas rollback of child labor laws was reported, put this up. What changes under put this thing up that you gave me from Axios? What changes under Arkansas's loosened child labor law? The word undocumented child. Those two words do not show up whatsoever in here. You have one mention of the word immigrant at the top of the piece. Why it matters. Child and immigrant advocates worry that eliminating the permits, that's what was done. Teens under the age of 16 no longer need a work permit through the Arkansas Department of Labor and Licensing before they can start a job. They worry that the eliminating permits make it easier to get away with violating child labor laws and for predatory employers to take advantage of disadvantaged children who don't have parents looking out for them. Who doesn't have parents? What broad cohort of children in this country do not have parents looking out for them? Unaccompanied migrant children. I would bet that 90 to 95%, maybe more, of children working in factories, working as roofers, and by children, I mean below the age of 16, let's say, working in slaughterhouses, maybe it's 99%, are migrant children. This is what it does. Teens 16 and up do not need a permit for an employment. Rules for ages 14, 15 remain more restrictive than older teens, how late they can work. Those are generally. Applications for work permits previously required parent signatures. The reason why they did this in Arkansas was not so that I don't have to go through the red tape of getting my kid to go get a job at the soda pop place. It's so that these employers can hire migrant children and escape liability. Well, I didn't know. The child said that they were legal. He doesn't have a license. He's under 16. He gave me a social security number. I put it in. How was I supposed to know? That's why this is all this is. It is to legalize the child trafficking of migrant kids. That's it. The state only investigates child labor when there's a complaint. Listen to what they're saying. This is what the go down a little bit on this. This is what the bill sponsors said. Rebecca Burks, Republican from Lowell. I bet you, I would bet you everything I own. There is some type of like huge chicken farm there, or some type of like slaughterhouse, or there's something. There is some employer in her district that hires for probably pennies migrant children. Republican from Lowell. Google that. See when the latest arrest was. Argued that the permitting process amounts to red tape. She added that it's obsolete because it was put in place over 100 years ago when child labor kept kids out of school. Some legislators question why the work permit is needed at all if it's not shown to prevent employers from violating child labor laws, and if requiring government-issued permits undermines parental rights. These same people who are voting, to get rid of a parent signing a work permit in the name of parental rights, you need to go through this red tape, are also the same people voting to prohibit these same parents from deciding what's best for their children's health in terms of transgender care. Clint Penzo, Republican from Springdale, the bill's other primary sponsor, pointed out that identification and therefore age verification is still needed to fill out required tax forms when starting a new job. So the fake ID that they're going to have, provided to them by the child traffickers, is going to be sufficient. And because there is no parent that it comes into the equation whatsoever, nobody has to sign off on this. There's nobody there to complain. That's what this is all about. It's grotesque. Not a single word about this in this Axios story. And I would imagine that's the case in the vast majority of the people who reported on this. No indication whatsoever that this is really just a sort of like grease on the wheels of child trafficking. That's all that it is. And yet we're told these same people are so concerned about children. You know what else mutilates children? When you get your hand stuck in a factory wheel or factory machine. Or when you're in a slaughterhouse. Really just horrendous. I'm in a bad mood now. Did you find anybody? Lowell, Arkansas? Google that. I'm quite sure there's going to be something in there that is going to be just like perfect example. We'll have more fun in the fun half, folks. I'm going to make fun of Ollie Alexander. And apparently he's buddies with Nick Fuentes, which I have to tell you is the least shocking thing I've ever heard. All right, the number is 646-257-3920. Just a reminder, it is your support that makes the show possible. Still going through some stuff with the ads. That's going to be a problem for a while, I think. This dynamic ad insertion thing, I thought we had figured it out. Not so much. You probably noticed we don't have the same number of ads that we did last year. And year over year, it's even worse. At the end of the day, it's really our members who make this show possible. You can become a member at jointhemajorityreport.com. When we go to break, Bradley will put up a QR code. You can also join through the app. And you can get the app for free at majorityapp.com. That's the way you can IM the show if you become a member. But the app has all sorts of links to our TikTok and our Instagram. Our TikTok game is really through the roof right now. So check that out. Also, don't forget, you can buy merch through the app, or that'll take you to our store. And we've got the Effin' Dork shorts. Show your solidarity. Don't forget justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee, tea, or chocolate. Use the coupon code majority. Get 10% off. We got that Seder sale. They sent us some great stickers. We'll show those tomorrow. I'm so excited about those. I love those guys. Justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee, tea, or chocolate. Use the coupon code majority. Get 10% off. You can check out ESVN. Emma and Bradley were at it yesterday. What'd you guys talk about? Any big sports news these days?
Yeah, we talked about the first week of the NBA playoffs, like the play-in and then the first few games, and then gave a little bit of a preview for the NHL playoffs that started last night, and some of our predictions for how the seeding will go and who we think will make it to the Stanley Cup Finals. So youtube.com/ESPN show for more.
Bruins won last night.
That's right. Bruins are on fire.
On fire. Also, don't forget, tonight's Tuesday. Today is Tuesday. That means that Matt, who is on his fake grand jury thing, somebody wrote an IM yesterday saying Michael was very smart, but it's surprising that Michael Brooks never figured out the old grand jury scam. But check out Left Reckoning. Matt will be there tonight, I believe. He and Griscom. All right, quick break. 646-257-3920. We'll get some phone calls and take your IMs and do some other stuff.
You are in for it.
All right, folks. 646-257-3920. See you in the fun.
Are you ready?
Who sent us this?
Anarchy.
Alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just as delicious as you could imagine.
The alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just wanna degrade the white man.
Alpha males are back.
I take all of it to my throat.
Alpha males are back.
Snowflake says what?
The alpha males are back.
You are a madman.
And the alpha males are back.
Oh no, Sam Cedar, what a fucking nightmare.
Bring back DJ.
Yeah, or a couple of them. Just put them in rotation.
DJ Danner.
Well, the problem with those is they're like 45 seconds long, so I don't know if they're enough of a break.
That's fucking nonsense. You see white people doing drugs, they look worse than normal white people, and all white people look disgusting.
And the alpha males.
Psych. Fuck them. Snowflake says what? Snowflake says what?
A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. Okay, I'm making stupid money. Hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank.
All lives matter. Have you tried doing an impression on a college campus?
I think that there's no reason why reasonable people across the divide can't all agree with this. Psych.
And the alpha males are back. And the Africans are black African. And the alpha males are black. And the Africans are back.
When you see Donald Trump out there, doesn't a little part of you think that America deserves to be taken over by jihadists? Keeping it 100.
Can't knock the hustle.
Come on, fuck them. Things I do for the bigger game plan. By the way, it's my birthday. Happy birthday to me, Jew boy. I have a thought experiment for you.
And the alpha males are back.
Africans are black alpha males are black Africans are back.
Come on. Come on. Come on. Someone needs to pay the price for blasphemy around here.
I am a total pussy.
We're back. It's the fun half. Lefties like sports too. There is a Tyson Chick and Quick plant listed on Lowell's Chamber of Commerce website. Says they employ 1,200 people. It's the 5th largest employer. Juniper J says, and Cargill Meat Solutions is there too.